It is indeed a pleasure to have Irom Sharmila with us here today. It's incredible to share this platform with her. I give her a very warm welcome to JNU. Thank you very much for being here. I would have preferred that only she spoke, but students insisted that I do my bit. So I'll roughly speak about the importance of Sharmila, her struggle, what that means for politics in the Northeast, what it means in terms of politics of solidarity that you all are engaged in. So as we know, Irom Sharmila's extraordinary fast has ended. But she continues to fight, or she has told us that she'll fight this battle through other means. In fact, the strategy that she has used in her fight is the most democratic form that we have seen in this country. In fact, two things make her struggle extraordinary. The first is in terms of who she is. She is an ordinary Indian citizen who has taken democratic means to protest. And this is extremely important in the context of the Northeast, where we see struggles only as armed struggles, where apparently our people have not taken democratic means for struggle. Yeah? The second is in terms of the mode of protest, in terms of the political fast. And as you know, the fast has been at the center of India's national struggle in terms of Gandhi's fight for independence in terms of satyagraha. And Irom Sharmila has consistently said that her struggle in terms of a satyagraha has not been recognized or acknowledged by the Indian state. Even after 16 years, her desire to have a conversation with the Indian state has failed, and she has not got an acknowledgement. So the question is, why is her struggle not understood as the struggle of a true Gandhian? Why is it that the nation has been unable to mobilize support around her? Why is it that the Indian state has been so quiet and has not spoken to Irom Sharmila? As you know, as a way of answering the question, I have argued elsewhere in terms of a contrast between Anna Hazare, and it goes without saying that why is it that he's considered to be a true Gandhian, for instance? Why is it that after 12 days of fasting, the Indian state decided to talk to him, right? So even without me telling you that, you would understand that it shows an inequality of representation between the Northeast and Sharmila. And just as there's an inequality between the relationship between India and the Northeast, there's a relationship of inequality between Hazare and Sharmila. So what I'm trying to say is that to understand this non-acknowledgement of Irom Sharmila's desire for a political conversation is situated within the inequality of the Northeast. There have been various attempts to understand what produces this inequality of the Northeast. People have understood as a colonial relationship, as a concentration camp, as within the words of Agamben and Smith in terms of state of exception. But I would like to say that many of these things in some ways do not adequately bring out the power relationship between India and the Northeast, which is much more subtle. And one of the reasons for this is that, if you have noticed, is that there's a way in which representative democracy continues to function along with martial rules like AFSPA, right? So in the Northeast, you have fair and free elections for the most part, and the turnout is actually quite huge. But the contradiction is that it exists along with representative democracy. So it tells you that the relationship between Northeast India is much more subtle. And within this context, I would like to take the lead of Partho Chatterjee when he had asked if post-colonial nation states have to imagine their nation states in the form of certain modular forms in North America or Europe, then what would there be in terms of imagining a nation state? So in a similar vein, I would like to ask, so do the margins of the post-colonial nation state, why do we have to articulate a sense of oppression within borrowed terms? In fact, I think Irom Sharmila's monumental protest has a bearing on this particular question. Therefore, we must interrogate if the inequity between India and the Northeast, if we can understand that the non-acknowledgement that we see, if it provides a way for us to articulate the post-colonial condition of marginality of India's Northeast. So the very fact that AFSPA has coexisted with representative democracy in the Northeast suggests that there is something amiss about the way in which democracy has operated in the Northeast. If you look at the way in which AFSPA was introduced in the Northeast, it was introduced in the Naga Hills of Manipur. It was introduced because the Nagas claimed that they are a separate nationality from the Indian nationality. However, this claim of difference of the Nagas was something that the Indian state could neither acknowledge nor could it ignore, because as you know, unity and diversity, the way in which differences come together in form of a unity of India is the main form in which nationalism is understood. But at the same time, it would not be let go, because it would be like accepting the colonial argument that India could not be a nation because of its many differences. So the response to this particular way in which both it was included and excluded was in the form of AFSPA, which is both inside and outside the law. So what this would mean is that the Nagas were understood to be removed from internationalism, but at the same time they could not be taken outside the ambit of nationalism. So it's a political condition that I have termed an inclusive exclusion, something which Northeast gets caught up in this non-space. And because the highest language of citizenship, belonging is in the form of citizenship, there's a way in which it's difficult to articulate this. So if we have to have a political language to articulate this political condition, then we have to be able to be in this space of non-space and articulate. And I argue that Irom Sharmila is very much within this particular non-space, because if you think about what the Indian state did to her, right? So she was imprisoned under Article 309 in terms of prevention of suicide. So when at one level, the Indian state tried to protect her as a citizen, right? But at the same time, this particular inclusion turns into an exclusion, because the moment she's protesting against AFSPA, she's talking about the precarity of normal Indian citizens. So immediately the inclusion is an exclusion, and it works in the form of a non-acknowledgement of her call to a political conversation. So, so being included and excluded, Sharmila gets caught up in this non-space. She has become the one who cannot be excluded from the legal category of Indian citizenship, yet she cannot be included within the political imagination that articulates the Indian nation. So in many ways, she personifies the struggle of the Northeast. And she is very much the first democratic expression, I would say, and not the masquerading representative type in India's Northeast, of a political condition that, given the constraints imposed by languages and categories of citizenship and representative democracy, has proven difficult to articulate. So she, in some ways, has given a democratic response to articulate a political condition of inclusive exclusion. And this is the enduring contribution of her struggle, according to me. And it is up to us what we make of this struggle and how we take this forward. How do we change the language with which we articulate our claims of belonging? So what does it mean, for instance, in terms of politics of solidarity? What would it mean? So would it be in terms of just agreeing to certain terms which are set? Or would you need to think of it differently by first recognizing the power relationship that exists? Because it's not a claim for inclusion into something that already exists, but it's something else. Yeah. So with this, I would like to end. Thank you.